Welcome back to the Kentuckiana Hoops Podcast. I'm Noah Brightstein.
And I'm Cole Thompson. Today we are having our first ever guest on the podcast, Coach Todd Franklin. Coach Franklin is the head coach of Vincennes University. He is a NJCAA Hall of Famer and a 2019 national champion. Coach Franklin has 23 years at the Division I junior college level, making the national tournament 12 out of the past 17 seasons, including a streak of 8 seasons in a row. Hey, Coach Franklin, how are you?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Doing well. It's me here, Cole Thompson, and Noah Brightstein.
What's up, Coach?
Oh, not much. What's going on with you guys?
Nothing much. After doing some research last night, I found out you played at Union and Brescia. How were you as a player?
Oh, obviously not good enough.
Yeah.
Not a good enough player. I'd have been playing a little higher level, but, good enough. I was a pretty good high school player in Kentucky. Scored about 1,600 points. Graduated high school young. I was 17, didn't turn 18 till after. And, I was the first one in my family ever do anything like that. Probably didn't handle it as well as I'd like looking back, but, I wasn't bad.
Doing some research, I didn't see that you played at Kentucky High School. Where'd you play at, Coach?
I was old Central City before they consolidated. You guys might be a little older and have to appreciate that, but Central City, when it closed, had the most wins of any high school in the state. We only graduated about 60, 65 people a year, but we played everybody. It was usually, one of the better teams in the state. Back, we didn't have very many students. Did it forever. Now it's been consolidated and became Muhlenberg North and Muhlenberg South after my brother. I had a younger brother that played and went to Austin P after, and now is a women's coach at Chipola to win a national championship as well. Like the year after he was done is when they consolidated, and it was 2 schools for a while. Now it's just one, Muhlenberg. So, I was the old Central City, old Golden Tide days.
As you were growing up, what were your coaching idols, or who were your coaching idols, and who made you want to get into coaching?
My coaching idol was my dad. My dad, he was never officially, high school, college, anything coach. He would have been what you would consider an AAU coach before it was AAU coaches back in the day. We played at junior pro, and there'd be all-star teams. He's a pretty good player. He played freshman ball at Western Kentucky, came back. So he grew up in the deal where, Central City always been really good back in the day. So you have all that rich tradition and history. He's one of those guys that grew up in it, loved the game, should have coached, worked at the Kentucky Utilities plant his whole life. Was probably better than me or my brother. Both of us have won national championships. He was probably a better coach than both of us, but we both learned from him. He, we'd take all those teams from 3rd grade through about 7th grade, and we traveled everywhere and beat everybody and, anybody and everybody for years and years. And all those guys went on to when we had great seasons in high school and all that stuff were came from him. But most of what I learned, truthfully, coaching-wise, and how to deal with people and those type of things came from my father, which if I said anything different or threw some other name out there, I'd be lying. Of course, growing up where I grew up, you saw all the guys, the legends at the time when I was a kid. Joe B. Hall was at Kentucky. Gene Cady was at Purdue. Bobby Knight was at Indiana. Digger Phelps at Notre Dame. All those guys were the people you got to watch because we didn't have cable, when I was a kid. So we were lucky enough we had the local stations, and you had the games on 10:30 a lot of times. It was whatever your antenna could pick up, and we were lucky enough we were able to get Nashville station. So we got Tennessee, Vanderbilt. We got Bowling Green station, so you could always watch Western Kentucky play. We were good enough to get Louisville. I was a big Louisville Cardinal fan when I was a kid. I loved the Doctors of Dunk, Darrell Griffith, those guys, Denny Crum. We got Kentucky, obviously, and then you got all the Indiana people because we got the Evansville station. So we were very fortunate in those days when you couldn't get very many games on. But all those people carried their games, at least on tape delay during the week. You didn't get any games during the week. There was no ESPN. And then, you got a couple games on the weekend. NBC to have an early game and a late game. So very lucky. There was great basketball at that time and great passion for the game. And, when I grew up, every high school game was packed. We was the mayor of the high schools. I mean, he basically was the mayor of town in most of those places where they were good. So I got to play really in that last bastion, of the old way, and we were still one of the last extensions of that. So there was a lot of guys you thought coaches in those days as really a leader of the community. You know what I mean? It was a different kind of deal, and nothing was more important than basketball in any town you were talking about. Where I grew up in, West Central Kentucky.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So how long have you known you wanted to coach?
Oh, really, my whole life. I may not have, written that down somewhere or something, but there was that's what I was growing up in. I mean, that's what I knew. That's what we did. That's what, you were passionate about. I knew at a pretty early age I was a pretty good player, but, I probably wasn't going to play in the NBA. I dreamed of that when you were a kid like everybody else, in the backyard. But, I was smart enough to figure at some point in time that probably wasn't going to be it. But there was a point in time when I thought about being a lawyer. There's a lot of discussions on that and family things to trying to go that direction, and that might have been the other, avenue I would have gone in life. But some things opened up for me, some opportunities. I was lucky enough to get in at Austin Peay very, very early with Coach Luce the first year. When he was there, of course, Dave Luce ended up being the winningest coach in OVC history. I was very fortunate to come in with him with the first staff. I was the third assistant, and was very lucky to do that. Coach was a great guy and learned a ton right off. So, 22 years old, I had an opportunity and took it.
So talking about that, after Austin Peay, where did you go after that?
Well, at Austin Peay, I was the third guy, and the third guy there, you had two full-times, and then you were the part-time assistant / grad assistant. So I got paid a little bit of money, and I got my school paid for. And, there's only three of us, so I was very fortunate. I got a lot to do, but there's also one of those situations where you need to move on. I had a chance to go to UNC Asheville as a full-time assistant, or I could go to the University of Missouri-Rolla. In that time, Missouri-Rolla was in probably the best Division II league in the country. They were paying me more money, despite the fact it was Division II, and I would have been the top assistant there. I was very, very fortunate. I was a great guy, Dale Martin. At 23, I was the top assistant, and, got a lot of freedom to go recruiting those things, and I thought that was the better move and did it, and was there for 6 great years. I mean, we had a great time. Learned a lot. He gave me a lot of freedom. We were good when they had never really been good before. So it was great. I owe a lot to Coach Martin. Coach Martin was a guy that, he's just one of the best guys in the world to work for. So was Coach Luce. I was incredibly lucky with both those guys. And for whatever reason, both those guys gave me a lot of leeway to work and learn and do. And, I wouldn't have had any success without those two guys.
So hopping into you being at Austin Peay and UNC Asheville, where have your stops been? What are all the places that you've coached at?
I really haven't been that many places. I started Austin Peay, obviously, then I went to Missouri-Rolla. I was at Rolla for 6 years, and, we won the league and went to the NCAA tournament, hosted the NCAA tournament. They'd never done anything like that. But Coach was, about 10, 12 years older than I was. Maybe 15, but he wasn't going to retire. He wasn't going to leave. He loved life in Raleigh, Missouri, and so I wasn't going to get that job. So you started to decide, what do I want to do? Do I want to go be an assistant somewhere else? There were opportunities, but I was dumb enough that I took a job betting on myself to be the head coach at Southeastern Illinois, junior college coach, right by the Kentucky border. It's over in Harrisburg, Illinois. And I thought I'd get some Kentucky boys and be able to get a few things done and probably move from there fairly quickly. I had to teach full-time, and teach was classroom teaching. These guys come up, and you're going to talk about you want to make it. Sometimes it's tough. We had to raise most all of our money, all of our recruiting money, all of our, most of all of our food, housing money. I was teaching 15 hours of full-time class. I had 30 people in the class. And I had to do everything a full-time teacher did. I actually became a tenured professor build a national program in the middle of a great JUCO area at that time. And, you're moonlighting it on the side with really no assistant. I got an assistant because I brought my brother with me. He lived with me during that time. So, but we did 6 years there. I mean, I ended up with 13 years there. I'm sorry. So I was at Southeastern for 13. Would have never imagined I would have been there that long, but it was a great 13 years. We won a ton. We had great guys, great players. We developed great friends there. And I wouldn't have left there for any other JUCO job until the Vincennes opportunity came. And when Vincennes came, then I went there. And so I've been at Vincennes again. So I've really only had 4 coaching stops with guys old as I am. That's not too many.
So at Southeastern Illinois, you guys had a lot of success. You guys had trips to the national tournament in 2003, 2004, 2008, and 2010.
Yep.
What was one of the biggest factors to that success?
Oh, we just got hungry guys. We made a decision that, myself and my brother at the first part, we were both hungry guys. And we wanted good guys that really wanted to work. Trying to get a little athleticism. Sometimes, we got guys that were an inch or two too short for a position, that type thing, or had to convert people. Like we took Dante Smith. He'd been a 4-man high school. The time he left us, he was playing point guard, and he was the 30th pick in the NBA draft. But, this guy's working. So we had to get good guys that needed work, whether skill work, et cetera, something. They needed work. So we just literally made a decision. We're going to get guys that we really believe, going to put in the time, because they're probably not going to be good enough when they walk in here. We're going to try to look and find some people we think that can be good enough. But, if they don't really work, then it's not going to happen. And so they got to be really hungry. We tried to be really honest with them. And, man, there's some great things happen. Obviously, Kentucky was great to us because we knew all the guys. We knew the coaches. We knew the places. Most people, when they come to Kentucky, especially in those days, would just go to Louisville and, Lexington. And we were getting guys from just outside of those areas. We got Lamar Owen on our first teams that were really great. Lamar was an Owensboro, Kentucky kid. Dante was Oldham County. And we had Tyrone Green from over in the mountains in Wayne County. Went on to be a really good player, Southern Illinois. And we just keep going. There was a ton of those guys that we would get that would be just off the path enough that, the mainstream wasn't flying through there, and we knew those guys. And so that was probably our biggest thing, was just finding the hungry guys and working the areas that we knew. And then we started to supplement it a little bit. We got some guys from Jamaica. Finding size is always a problem. I got to know a guy in Jamaica. He used to work camp in Kingston, Jamaica. And we got guys out of there from areas that nobody ever got anybody from. Damian Staple came out of there, who was an All-American for us right off the bat inside, that helped us do our first trip to the national tournament. And again, they were hungry guys, and I had a guy down there, and I knew guys that we could get the right guy. We didn't get guys that were going to come in and cause problems, be bad guys. We had information. So we pretty much stuck to the areas where we had real information on the guys, but we knew what kind of guys we were getting. And we stayed pretty true to that formula, and we had a lot of success with it.
Okay, so moving on to when you moved on to Vincennes. So in 2010, 2011, that was your first season, and you guys had 18 wins. In year 2, you had 28, and in year 3, you finally made it to the national tournament, and you had 33 wins. What was some of the biggest challenges moving to a place like Vincennes?
Oh, man. When we took the job at Vincennes, as it fell, unfortunately, it will probably always be the hardest thing I've ever done. We were preseason number 2 in the country at Southeast. We had gone to the national tournament year 4. We finished 7th. We had really good, great group of guys coming back. The financial situation at the Southeast just kept getting worse and worse and worse. But we kept having to fundraise more and more and more, and we did to keep pulling it up for the guys. But it was just a strain. And the players knew it. We were always open with them, and they knew what we were going through all the time to keep them, where they needed to be. And during that summer, the Vincennes gig, opened up, and they started making contact with me. And we were honest with the players. players the entire time about what might happen. And then it did, but what it did was literally we had already started class at Southeastern in the fall, and Vincennes was starting the next week. So we had to leave those guys and going and having that meeting with those guys. It's hard to describe, despite the fact they knew the whole time what was going on, and we were open. We were able to get most of those guys out and placed at different places if they wanted to go, or we took some with us that we could, but we just couldn't take as many. We tried to take care of all of them, but man, that was really tough, and it created a really tough thing to start off because the guys that were at Vincennes were guys that, obviously we had been beating, and there was a reason we were beating them. They might not have been the same type of guys that we had at in general that we had at Southeastern, so it was there were some guys probably living with me that didn't want to, and there were some guys I was probably living with I didn't want to. That very first year, and we needed to make a culture change. And we've gone through 13 years where we've been at Southeastern, and we had things on a roll. Where the guys coming in, we knew what they were getting into when they came to our place. It was kind of handed down one group to the next, and then we went there, and man, great buildings and things and deals, but man, the culture was just different, and just where it was. So that first year, we had really no time to recruit our own, and we tried like heck to coach those guys the way that we thought we should and could, but it was a challenge year one. But by the end of the year, we had some of those guys buy in. We actually were playing really good basketball and had a tremendously bad whistle up in Maryland. And I think we could have done a little bit of something at the end of that year, but it was a challenge. But after that first year, it was basically clean house and start over. And when we started over with almost all freshmen. I mean, we just went and got freshmen. And when you look at that freshman class, that was the beginning of our deal at Vincennes. It was Sean Delaney, and we went on to New Mexico, Darius Carter, who started for 2 years at Wichita State when they were going to Sweet 16. And, that type of thing. That group, and when that group as a freshman didn't get to Hutchinson, they went 28-3, and we played everybody. The schedule was great, basically playing all freshmen. And then their second year, we went to the Final Four, and since that point in time, we've gone to 8 straight, Sweet 16s, and we had 5 or 6 Elite Eights and 4 Final Fours and a national title. So, which the 8 in a row is a record. But that group that we brought in after year one, which is when we really started, the Carters and the Delaney's and those guys, they were the start of it. And like I said, by year 2 of theirs, they got us there, and we almost won the darn thing. We actually lost our starting center late in the year to a knee injury. If we had not, we really believe we would have won it. We lost in the semis in a really good game to Northwest Florida. I think if we'd had it, we'd have won. But, that was the start. But even there, even when it was tough to begin, we were committed. We're going to do it, this same way. Just with bigger buildings and nicer things, and maybe we could even get a little bit better player, which is hard to do than what we had at Southeastern. But, we stuck true to that, and so getting through it was tough, but we did it.
Can you speak to the difference in expectations at a place like Southeastern Illinois compared to a storied junior college program like Vincennes?
Well, it's completely different in the expectations outside of our basketball family. There's no equivalent. Now, by the time we left Southeastern, the rest of the world was expecting us to be really good all the time. And, we had people in town that loved us and were supporting us. In fact, they were having to support us. And everybody, wanted us to win, and did everything they could to help us. Inside of our family, it's never any different. Our players are, we always expected to be one of the best teams in the country, and that's what we strove to be. And we expected our guys to end up being Division I players and being successful and getting their degrees. And, we had a couple Southeastern, a couple pros came out of there, real pros. So, inside our family, the people you deal with every day, the expectation is not much different. But, outside, obviously it was. But, when I came to Vincennes, they had been, but they had not won a game at the national tournament in 16 years in the main draw. forever since they had been, Final Fours, national championship type deal, despite the fact that the name was still good. So, I think that there were some people inside there that realized that, we need to make a culture change and get things going. So the expectation was we would do it. But it wasn't like we were coming in off of, they had won a couple national titles in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. Those national titles have been way back. So it was kind of, we want to get it right, and we want to get it right the way that we had been doing it at Southeastern. So they wanted to bring it over to do it. But, surrounding the program, there's no comparison. I mean, Vincennes it's Kentucky, it's North Carolina, it's Indiana, it's Kansas, of junior college basketball. And that's what it is. We look up there and our guys walk in the gym every day and see, Bob McAdoo jersey hanging, John Marion, Carl Landry's. We'll go on. There's 12 NBA guys that how many Division I schools, really good Division I schools, have 12 NBA guys. And we've got like multiple All-Stars and a couple of top 50 players of all time. And, you walk in there, it's a different thing, man. I mean, there's no question, but there's really no place you walk in just like that. There's no place that you walk in. You walk in our gym and look at the names and the banners and the things and the deals. You realize when you have that job that you have a responsibility. And, we've been very happy that over this last 58 years, we've been able to kind of hold that and maybe add a significant chapter to that history.
Okay. So in 2019, you won the Junior College National Tournament. So what was different about the 2019 team that won it all compared to other teams that you've coached in the past?
Not a lot. I've said that to a lot of people. We've had great success, and like the year before, for instance, we lost in the Final Four. We were 34-1. Pun Tisdale, Kentucky boy from Lexington, great player that just, won the player of the tournament in the big at East Tennessee. Great player, great guy, great leader. It led us to, position where he was shooting a shot down 3 to win or lose, got fouled. Clearly got fouled. I mean, nobody can possibly say he didn't get fouled, and the whistle didn't blow. We had the best clutch player in the country at the line shooting 3 free throws down 2 to advance to the final. Then that Southern Idaho then lost by 1 the next night to South Plains. So we had 2 or 3 other times we're in Final Four. The year before that, we played the number 1 team in the country in the Elite 8. They hit a 35-footer in front of their bench, at the Horn. To beat us by 2, we were up 1 as the shot went up. That team could have won it. We had, probably 4 or 5 teams that it had every chance in the world to win it. Had a couple of injuries, a couple of years that we lost players, and then we lost in Final Fours where there were great games and great teams that went on to win it. Where we really felt like if, where those guys were playing, we could have won. So, to win it, when you go through those tournament grinds like that, there's so many factors got to fall in place. This time it did for us. This time we had a guy that was hurt the first half of the year who got healthy instead of, playing and getting hurt and not having him. We had him. He had a really good national tournament. But it was a great team. But we've had other great teams that have played well at the tournament. Somebody hit a 35-footer falling down, or, there was a no call at the end of the game. And this time, things went our way. But it was a really good team, but we've had probably 4 or 5 or 6 other teams that were right there with them.
So you guys at Vincennes have made the Junior College National Tournament 8 times in a row. What is one of the hardest things about maintaining success like that year after year after year?
Oh man, in junior college, it's just having a culture and having a culture when you're turning players over. The way we have to, because that's just what happens. They're only there 2 years at max, and you get a lot of guys that might be there 1. You get a transfer in, he's there 1, or we get a qualifier and he plays 1 year and gets enough offers and he leaves. So, it's just a turnover every year. So especially the way we do it, we try to have a culture of who we are, what we are. You know, it's just, you just got to work at maintaining that every day. And then, you know, recruiting never ends for us. It's you know, every year. Like we've signed 10 players since the lockdown. We have signed 10 guys since we got locked down. I mean, we had to go get 10 or 11 guys in this class. And you have to do that every year. And if you miss a little or don't get right, you know, when you're having that kind of turnover, you know, then you don't win that next year. So to have been able to do that for 8 straight years at the level that we've been able to do it, you know, I got Coach Davis. Brian Davis does a great job with me. He's been with me the entire time here. He wasn't with me at Southeastern, but he's been with me at Vincennes ever since I got here. He's done a great job. Just having the energy to work it every day. Because if you ever let up, they're going to eat you alive. You know, they're always waiting to get you. And, you know, just you have to have a little bit of luck because, you know, if you have a few guys hurt or a couple guys don't work out and it's a turnover every year, it you know, easily cannot happen. That's why, you know, the 8 in a row is a record. I mean, you know, we tied Moberly's record. Moberly did it 8 in a row, but that was in the 1950s. Very different era, a very different situation, you know, the landscape of junior college basketball. The next longest streak after that was 5. In the history of JUCO basketball, guys going to Huts. So in the whole history of JUCO, there's only 2 streaks that have ever gone past 5 of going consecutively to Huts. That's us now and the 1950s Moberly team. So, you know, we couldn't be prouder of the achievement because it shows sustained success, which is the most important success. And, you know, but we're very fortunate. We obviously have to have a little luck to do it, but it's just maintaining the culture. It's just difficult.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about your assistant coach, Brian Davis, and for all our listeners that are grad assistants and assistants right now or future wannabe assistants and head coaches, what is the process of hiring an assistant coach, and what do you look for, and what will their roles be for you?
Well, you know, there's a lot of factors to that. You know, you hire assistants. It could be somebody that was in our family, meaning a former player, or maybe a guy that got, you know, a second assistant kind of gig at some point in time. And if you have a top assistant open up, you know, he'd get it. But we've hired, you know, especially our second assistant, a lot of times over the years has been a former player, somebody that's been part of our program. You know, my first assistant was my brother. We had almost no money to give him, and he lived at my house. But, you know, you talk to people in the business, other colleagues, where they come from, what they do, you know, getting the first step in is either he's played with you, you've known him, you know somebody that he's been attached to that you talk to about him. You know, obviously all those things are things that go into the hiring process, and how they come into your view, especially in junior college where, you know, it's usually somebody trying to make those big first steps up to get in those positions. So it's a lot of times who do you know that they know that are connected to them. Now, as far as what they're going to do, you know, you're going to get into to any kind of coaching of any kind of high level. The first thing you need to be able to do, and you know, it's just the way it is, you got to work. I mean, you've got to work. You've got to want to work all the time. Basketball's not a punch the clock thing. It's around the clock. You know, it all the time. And, you know, assistant coaches have to understand one thing. You know, we've all been assistant coaches. I was assistant coach for 7 years, you know, before I did it. And that's a short stretch, you know, comparative to a lot of times what you have to do. But, you know, I think both guys I worked for thought I did a pretty good job. First thing you got to do is understand your main job is to make sure that the head coach's job is a lot easier. And if you want to stick around the business, that's the easiest and best way to stick around the business. Until you become the head coach, make sure that the head coach's job is a lot easier. He's got a lot of stuff on him, a lot of things going on. If you can do that, then, you know, he's going to do everything in the world to make sure you're still around. Because all of us that are head coaches are looking for something that take the load off of. I mean, whatever it is, make sure that that's what you're doing. When you become somebody that puts an extra burden on that head coach, you may not be around very long. So, you know, and that's just one of those things. It's hard to explain to people, but you know, every assistant coaching job is going to bring on different responsibilities. Are you going to have to do study tables? Are you going to be a guy that works with strength training, conditioning? Some places you are, some places you're not. How much more coaching are you going to do? How much paperwork you got to do? How much, you know, chasing players around you got to do? I mean, or you do them all. And when you're in junior college, you know, you've got to do probably a little bit more than you do when you're in Division I because they got more staff, and, you know, more guys, and you know, even less things they have to do. We have to bring in a lot more players every year and get them turned around quicker. So it's I tell anybody that asks me, let me put it this way: I have a lot of young guys ask me about getting into coaching, and I tell everyone the same thing: don't. All right, if that would be my advice to anybody who wants to get into coaching. Don't do it. Now, if after that you just have to, if you feel like this is something I need to, okay, then we can talk. But if you have another option or something else to do in the world, do it. Because you're probably not going to get paid in this business, you know, like you will in other businesses. And you're going to have to be a smart guy. You know, you usually have to be an educated guy. The amount of education it takes, you know, most time you got to get a master's degree if you want to be in college basketball, really. If you went to college and got a master's degree and went to something else, and you put the kind of time and energy and, you know, and you use your mind the way you do in this, you know, you probably make a lot more money and have a lot more settled life than you will going into coaching with a lot less pain in the backside. But, you know, for those that really want to get in it and feel like they have to and are hungry for it, the other thing I tell guys, and I say this to guys, that if you're a former player and you're getting the coaching, just you want to keep that same thing going, forget about it. Because being a former player, being a coach is not like being a player. They're two completely separate things in terms of, you know, game's over, the player goes and he has a good time. The coach is going to work. It's just a different world. And so, you know, the reasons you want to do it, they better be good and strong, and you better passionately want to do it because this is a hard business, and it's a hard business to figure out exactly how you advance because it's pretty haphazard. But when you get a job, if you're an assistant coach, try to make that head coach's job as good as possible. If you can do that, then, you know, you got a chance to stick around.
All right. Coach, what is it like having one of your former players and Coach Smith-Peters at John A. Logan become one of your more main competitors and rivals?
Hey, you know, I don't know about rival. That's a little strong for, you know, how we see each other. It's great. I mean, you know, we've got a number of guys out in coaching. Like I said, my brother who was with me, he went on to the women's side and has won a national title. Is one of the better, you know, coaches in junior college basketball on the women's side. We got Coach Reynolds at Miami, Ohio. His assistant is moving up the ranks fast. We got Rusty Elmore as assistant with me, who's out of Colby, who would have taken his team to the national tournament. Did a tremendous job. Eric Murphy at Florida Southwestern is one of my former assistants. You know, I would have had 3 former assistants at the national tournament this year, along with myself, if the tournament had been played. Because Coach Murphy, Coach Elmore, and Coach Smith-Peters were all there as well as ourselves. So really proud of that. I mean, that's the family. The family, you know, has been highly successful. Casey Wiley's probably going to get the only job, I think. That's what I'm hearing. And Casey was with us. It was 2 or 3 months in the summer before he then was able to get an SIU Rowersville job as an assistant. But, you know, he'll be another guy that will have been with us for a while that's now, you know, moving in the coaching tree. So, you know, it's just part of it when you get old, I guess. You've been around a while and you start to get these guys. The coach, Smith-Peters, has done a great job at Logan. Really proud of what he's doing. He's, you know, they're one of the better teams in the country. And you know, but like I told him when he was taking the job, when we talked about it back in the day, taking advice on whether he should take it, not take it. We were having a discussion about it. Now, remember one thing though, you know, when go to play, all the other stuff goes out the window. We both laughed about it a little bit, but that's kind of what it is. We both have a job to do. My job hasn't changed at all because he's at Logan. And I'm sure, he's the same way. He's got a job to do at Logan. He goes about it and does it. The fact that, I think sometimes people around it make a bigger deal out of it. And, like when we were both together at Southeastern, he was there with me as a player for 3 years. He redshirted a year and then with me too. And of course, he was from Harrisburg, played Harrisburg High School. So, everybody knew him. And then he came back with me for 1 year as an assistant coach after he played at Southern Illinois. So we were together a lot. And, we knew a lot of the same people that are attached. And I think sometimes people make a bigger thing out of it. Coach Smith here and myself, we have the same relationship that we did before, the ball ever went up, and we'll have the same relationship after it's over. It's basketball. We both have a job to do, and, but how I feel about Coach, doesn't change at all. Whether we win, lose, or draw when we play each other.
So for our players that listen to the podcast, what do you look for in a recruit, and what makes a player efficient and catches your eye?
Well, you know what? The first thing we look for is the things that will eliminate him. I mean, if he's supposed to be a player at all, and what I mean, we'll get on, we'll look at his social media, we'll get through all this stuff. If there's things on there that don't make sense, we'll end the recruitment. If we'll start watching film on him, and we start seeing bad body language and bad acting and reacting, we quit recruiting him. If we start talking to coaches and they're kind of iffy on him as a person, we stop recruiting him. Then, once we don't have the negatives, then the next thing is we start asking about a guy. We want to know, how hard does he work? And what's the evidence of his work? And if we don't think he's a guy that really wants it and he's hungry and he doesn't really work, then we move on. And I think that's the first thing a lot of these players have got to understand is that if you want to play at a really good program, in a place that you want to be, then you're going to have to be a type of person that fits in those places. I think a lot of players think that this thing is all about them. It's not all about them. It's not all about them at all. It's about whether or not, when they give a scholarship, we have all these great things we've done for guys. We help them go to the next levels. We get them graduated. We care about them, and we love them the rest of their lives. And that's all true. But that player needs to look at these things when he comes in. His biggest and most important job when he goes to play somewhere, he has to make sure that they win. Because if they win, that head coach gets to keep their job. If that head coach, if you're a player and you are making this situation where this head coach gets to keep his job, he's going to probably be pretty good to you. And he's probably going to make sure that you're around and playing and in good shape. If you're a guy that's not helping him win and you're just playing for yourself and you're doing all the crazy stuff that some of these guys do, that guy might not tell you, but he's going to eventually eliminate. And it's no more complicated than that. Everybody can bring everything else up in the world. At the end of the day, as a player, can you help that head coach win games? Now, what goes into that, or winning doesn't really change. Is he a guy that'll work? Is he a guy that'll work to get good shots? Is he a guy that, will get down and defend? Is he a guy that when you tell him, here's what I need from you, he'll do it instead of telling you the 15 other things that he wants to do? Because that coach is, he's got to put it together and make it work. And, you just see so many times that the idea of this player is that he thinks that it's all about him. It's not. Now, it is the most important thing in the world to him because it's his career, and that's absolutely true. But you also have to be able to see the fact that if you want to play at a really good place. Somebody goes to Kentucky, for instance, no matter what they tell you, it's about, what can you do to help Kentucky keep winning? Or wherever. They may tell you differently, but the real truth is behind the curtain, it is about, can you help them win? Can you keep that? I tell our guys all the time, they get recruited constantly. If you are going to go out and be recruited, when our guys leave, I say, look, your biggest job, make sure the head coach, right, make sure that head coach that you're playing for right now, that he believes you're a guy that's going to help him win. Not being a problem. If you are, you'll have a great experience. If you don't, you probably won't. And so we look for guys that understand and have the ability to be part of the team. And then from that, we're able to help all of them a whole lot more, and make it work. But I think that's something that we look really hard at. Is he a guy that we think will fit in? Now, talent-wise, we want like everyone. We want some quickness. You have to have quickness in this game. How well do they move through their hips so they can actually guard people? Then can they shoot the ball, or do they bring a special skill to the game? There's a different kind of special skills. Can this guy post up? Can this guy block a shot? Is this guy a great shooter? What do they bring that's going to make our team that we can put into our team and make it better? So there's a number of things. But, we want quick guys, quick-footed guys that are live and active on their feet. But, so much of what we do, though, is breaking down what kind of person. It really, really is. And I think that if the players around the country really understood that the places you want to play for might not tell you that to your face, but that's what they're thinking. Now, other programs may not, but they're not the places you want to play for. There'll be places you go to, they don't win. It gets a little crazy. It gets a little stupid. There's coaching changes. There's lack of discipline. There's all sorts of things. And you won't enjoy that. Nobody enjoys that. No player goes to those places and actually has a good experience. The ones that have a good experience are the ones that go to places with structure and culture. And if you go to those places, it's going to be about what I just said. And we look for the players that we think have that ability to be part of that. And that's a key. So I tell all players, all these things that you think are not important, are that social media stuff, etc. All these little things. These coaches get paid, all right, to win and to have very few problems. That's what they get paid for. They get paid basically to keep their job. They have to keep winning, and they have to have very few problems. They can get fired for problems, and they get fired for not winning. So if you're a player, it's pretty simple to look at that and go, how do I fit in to help that guy win? And how do I fit in, to keep there from being problems that are going to embarrass and cost that guy's job? Because that's what it is. And if you as a player can think that way, and you can start to act that way, and you can start to behave in a way that you fit into those two things, where you're the guy that's not going to cause the problem, and you're the guy that's going to do the things that help him to win, not necessarily does that have to be everything you want to do, because that's almost impossible. But are you going to be all about helping that ball club win? And what do you bring that does it? You will be a lot more recruitable for the top places you want to go. But even more importantly, you'll get to stay when you're there. Because sometimes those places will take a guy and hope that they can get him to get right. But then after he gets there and they figure out they can't get him right, you see the transfer wire is always really hot. And some of that is the player wants to leave, and some of it is somebody's pushing him out of the desk and we try to get this guy right, but it ain't going to work. So if you're a player and want to make it all the way to the end of the journey and have a good journey, graduate from someplace, have a good career someplace, be a player that does some good things while you're there, I think you need to always look at those two things. Am I a guy that gives the perception that I'm not going to cause a problem? I'm going to be a good guy. And am I a guy that no matter what, I'm going to find a way to make sure this coach feels like he's still going to have a job and he can come feed his family. And if you think that way, there's also some things you'll do about your game that are different than when you just think about, how does that pertain to you? So those are things that I would advise a player looking at it, but I can assure you that the top coaches that have won and keep winning, that run the programs you want to play for, that's how they look at things. Now, some of them ain't going to say it out loud because, somebody might give them grief, so they'll present a certain kind of appearance, but that's how they all think, because that's how you have to think.
All right, and last question. What is one thing you want someone who watches one of your practices to take away from it?
That's a good question. Somebody that came in to watch our practice, what would I want to take? That we obviously every coach like thinking that somebody watches their practice, they know what they're doing, but that this is the kind of effort you got to put. I would like for when somebody comes to practice, if nothing else, when they left practice going, hey, that's a group now that goes hard. That's a group that, and they go hard and they go efficiently. They know what they're doing while they're doing it, and you can see how that's going to work in a game. When they're practicing, they're not wasting time, and, man, they're busting it at what they need to be busting it at. I'd like, guy leave there, young coach, somebody walk in and go, that right there is that's a different level than maybe we've been doing, and we need to get to that level of intensity and laser focus on the things that we're actually going to do in the game. And if the guy thought that when they left, then we're probably doing all right.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Coach. We appreciate you answering a few questions.